The desert sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the cracked earth as the expedition made camp near a cluster of ancient ruins. The air was dry and still, save for the faint whisper of wind brushing over the dunes. Leila Hassan sat apart from the others, her knees drawn close as she carefully opened an old, leather-bound journal handed down through her family. The cover was cracked with age, its surface worn smooth from generations of touch. As her fingers traced the delicate, faded symbols embossed on the pages, a soft sigh escaped her lips, a mixture of reverence and the weight of memory. Jonathan approached quietly, his sharp eyes softened by curiosity. "That looks like something precious," he observed gently. Lila looked up, meeting his gaze with an intensity that belied her calm exterior. "It is," she replied. "This journal holds the stories of my ancestors, the guardians of the oasis." Jonathan nodded, settling beside her. "I've heard whispers, but never the full truth." Taking a deep breath, Lila began to unravel the tapestry of her heritage. She spoke of a lineage bound by duty to protect the oasis's sacred power, passed down through oral tradition and secret rites. The journal contained ancient customs, warnings, and a prophecy that spoke of a time when outsiders would seek the oasis's gift, threatening its delicate balance. As she recounted the stories by the flickering campfire, the team gathered closer, drawn in by the cadence of her voice and the gravity of her revelations. Dr. Marcus Finch, ever the skeptic, leaned forward, his usual cynicism tempered by the tangible passion in her words. "The oasis is more than a place," Leela explained. "It's a living legacy. Our people believe it holds the spirit of the desert itself. To protect it, we must understand not only its history but the responsibilities it demands." Jonathan felt a stirring within him, a renewed purpose that transcended his earlier ambition. The relentless pursuit of immortality now seemed entwined with the preservation of something far greater, a heritage that had endured millennia. Night deepened, and the desert sky unfurled its tapestry of stars. Lila stood alone at the edge of camp, the cool breeze catching her hair as she gazed toward the horizon. In the quiet solitude, she embraced the burden of her lineage and the resolve to see the expedition through with honor and respect. Jonathan approached again, the soft crunch of sand beneath his boots breaking the silence. "Thank you for sharing this, Lila. It changes everything." She smiled faintly, eyes reflecting both the flickering firelight and the vastness of the desert night. "We're part of something bigger now. Whatever lies ahead, we carry the legacy of those who came before us." Together, they looked up at the desert moon rising pale and luminous, a silent witness to the unfolding saga. The path forward was uncertain, but their bond was strengthened by shared understanding, testament to the enduring spirit beneath the desert moon. As the camp settled under the stars, the oasis's mysteries beckoned still. Its secrets guarded not just by ancient spells, but by the hearts and histories of those who dared to seek it. The chase was far from over, but with every revelation, the expedition drew closer to truths that would redefine their journey and themselves. The desert night hummed with possibility, and Leela's legacy breathed anew into the Sanzan, unyielding flame against the encroaching darkness, guiding them onward into the unknown. The desert night stretched endlessly above the camp, a vast tapestry of stars shimmering coldly against the ink-black sky. Around the flickering campfire, the shadows danced on weathered faces, casting shapes as fleeting and elusive as the oasis they pursued. Dr. Marcus Finch sat slightly apart from the others, his bespectacled eyes reflecting the firelight, a restless energy simmering beneath his usually composed exterior. Jonathan Crane approached, carrying a small leather satchel filled with fragments recovered from the ancient temple they had explored earlier that day. Leela Hassan followed close behind, her keen eyes bright with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The air was thick with the scent of sand, smoke, and the quiet tension of minds grappling with the unknown. "Marcus," Jonathan began, his voice low but insistent. "I know you've been skeptical about all this, the oasis, the legends, the illusions, but you saw what we found in the temple. Those inscriptions, the traps, the mechanism that controls the vanishing. This isn't just myth." Marcus adjusted his glasses and let out a breath, his gaze drifting upward toward the stars. "I've spent my life dismantling myths, Jonathan. Legends are stories told to make sense of the world when facts fall short. But what we've uncovered, it's challenging everything I believed." Leela stepped forward, her voice steady and calm. "Sometimes, understanding the desert means accepting there are things beyond our grasp. Forces ancient and powerful. We've seen illusions that deceive the eyes and traps that test the soul. It's a different kind of reality." Marcus nodded slowly, the lines on his forehead deepening. "I have to admit, the evidence is undeniable. The temple's architecture, the inscriptions, they point to knowledge far beyond what we assumed. But it's more than that. There's a feeling, a presence here, that science struggles to explain." Jonathan took a seat beside him, the firelight casting a warm glow over his determined features. "You're not alone. I fought against believing at first, but the desert demands respect and sometimes belief. It's not about abandoning reason, but expanding it." The night deepened, and the camp fell into a contemplative silence, broken only by the soft crackling of the fire and the distant whisper of the wind over the dunes. Marcus carefully unwrapped a parchment from the satchel, a fragment of ancient text adorned with symbols that seemed to pulse with a strange energy in the torchlight. "Look at this," Marcus said, tracing the symbols with a tentative finger. "These aren't just decorative. They describe the oasis's vanishing as a protective spell, a safeguard against those who would exploit its power. It's both science and sorcery intertwined." Leela leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our ancestors understood the desert's secrets in ways we're just beginning to grasp. This is a legacy of knowledge, not superstition." Marcus's eyes reflected a new reverence, his previous cynicism giving way to a fragile hope. Maybe there's a place for both worlds, the empirical and the mystical. Maybe the desert is teaching me that some truths lie beyond proof. Jonathan smiled, a rare softness touching his rugged features. "That's all I've tried to say. We're chasing more than immortality. We're chasing understanding. And sometimes that means opening your mind to possibilities that don't fit neatly into a textbook." As the fire dwindled to embers, the team settled into uneasy rest beneath the vast expanse of the desert sky. Marcus lay back, staring upward, his mind racing with thoughts that blurred the lines between myth and reality. For the first time in years, he felt the stirring of belief, cautious but profound. Yet even as his heart softened, a shadow of doubt lingered. Could he fully embrace this new worldview without losing himself? Or was the desert's magic a dangerous temptation, threatening to unravel the very foundations of his identity? The night whispered its secrets, and the endless chase continued beneath the desert moon, where science met legend and every step forward was a step into the unknown. Morning crept slowly over the horizon, painting the dunes in shades of gold and crimson. Marcus rose from his makeshift bed, the cool desert air stirring a quiet resolve within him. He joined Jonathan and Lila, who were already poring over the latest findings. "I've been thinking," Marcus began, his voice steady but laced with new conviction. "We can't afford to dismiss the supernatural elements anymore. They're part of the oasis's truth, and part of what makes this journey so vital." Leela nodded approvingly. "It's about respect, Marcus. Respect for the desert, its history, and its guardians." Jonathan clapped him on the shoulder. "Welcome to the team, fully. Your mind and heart together will be our greatest strength." Together, they prepared to press onward, the desert's endless mysteries still waiting just beyond the next dune. Marcus's skepticism had not vanished entirely, but it had evolved, tempered by experience and a newfound openness. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, he was ready to walk it with faith in both science and the unseen. As they moved forward, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows behind them, shadows that stretched like the past itself, reminding them all that belief was not a surrender, but a new kind of courage. The desert held its breath, and the chase surged ever onward. The oasis awaited, shimmering just beyond the horizon, a beacon of hope and enigma under the desert moon. The chapter closed on a moment of quiet transformation, a scientist's journey from doubt to wonder, and a team strengthened by the blending of knowledge and faith. The desert story was far from over, and as Marcus's eyes met Jonathan's, there was an unspoken promise. Together, they would face whatever mysteries the sands still concealed. But just as certainty grew, so too did the whisper of new dangers lurking in the shifting dunes, and Moloch's shadow remained, a reminder that the endless chase was far from finished. "We're not done yet," Jonathan murmured, eyes fixed on the horizon where myth and reality intertwined beneath the desert moon. And with that, they stepped into the unknown once more. The desert stretched out endlessly before them, a vast expanse of scorching sand and jagged rocks that seemed to breathe with its own ancient rhythm. The sun beat down mercilessly, casting harsh shadows that danced and flickered in the shimmering heat. Dr. Jonathan Crane led the expedition with a steady eye, his sharp gaze scanning the horizon for both signs of the lost oasis and the lurking threats that had dogged them since the journey began. Leela Hassan walked beside him, her every step deliberate and sure, feet deftly avoiding the more treacherous patches of sand. Her knowledge of the desert was unmatched, but even she wore a trace of weariness beneath her intense eyes. Behind them, Marcus Finch adjusted his dusty glasses, his skeptical frown deepening as the sun climbed higher. "We need to keep moving," Jonathan said firmly, stopping to consult the ancient map in his hands. "We're running out of daylight, and the terrain ahead is the most unforgiving yet." "Unforgiving is putting it mildly," Leela replied, her voice low and cautious. "There are hidden traps, sand pits, and quicksands that even seasoned trackers can't always detect." Marcus, wiping sweat from his brow, muttered, "I'm beginning to think that myth and reality are more intertwined here than I ever imagined." The team pressed onward, but the desert was relentless. Suddenly, the ground beneath Marcus shifted alarmingly. He barely had time to cry out before the sand gave way, swallowing his foot in a hidden pit. Panic surged through the group. "Marcus, hold on!" Jonathan shouted, lunging forward as Leela grabbed a sturdy branch nearby. With a coordinated effort, they pulled Marcus free, his face pale but alive. The near catastrophe sent a shiver through them, all a brutal reminder of the desert's treachery. "That was too close," Elena Cruz said, checking Marcus for injuries as she always did with calm precision. As they resumed their march, the strain within the group became palpable. Jonathan and Lila debated fiercely over the best path forward. Jonathan's determination to press on was met by Lila's caution born of experience. "We can't afford a wrong turn," Lila insisted, eyes flashing. One misstep here could mean death. We don't have the luxury of time, Jonathan shot back. Every minute counts if we're to reach the oasis before sunset. The argument escalated, voices raised against the constant whisper of the wind. Marcus and Alina exchanged uneasy glances. Cracks were forming, not just in the desert floor, but in the team's unity. As dusk approached, a sudden volley of gunfire shattered the fragile calm. Malik el-Sayed's mercenaries emerged from behind rocky outcrops, their intent clear and deadly. Sand and smoke mingled as Jonathan's team scrambled for cover. "Stay close, return fire," Jonathan commanded, his leadership cutting through the chaos. The firefight was brutal but brief. Jonathan's strategic mind and the team's cohesion under pressure turned the tide. When the last shots faded, the desert fell silent once more. Around a flickering campfire, the team gathered, faces etched with exhaustion and the stark reality of their predicament. The desert shadows stretched long, the stars piercing the darkening sky. Jonathan met Lila's steady gaze, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Despite the fractures and fears, their resolve remained unbroken. The desert had tested them, but it had not yet claimed their spirit. "We're not done yet," Jonathan murmured, voice rough but resolute, not by a long shot. The desert whispered around them, ancient and eternal, as the team braced themselves for the trials yet to come. Beneath the endless sky, shadows danced and secrets waited, hiding in the sands that stretched beyond the horizon. And somewhere in that vastness lay the lost oasis, elusive, mysterious, and more dangerous than any of them had imagined. The chase was far from over. The mercenary camp simmered under the blistering desert sun, an unforgiving furnace that seemed to magnify every whispered doubt and simmering resentment. Malik el-Sayed stood at the center of the encampment, his muscular frame rigid with barely contained fury, his dark eyes flashing beneath thick brows. Around him, the mercenaries he had led with iron discipline for months shifted uneasily, their loyalty fraying like the worn fabric of their desert coats. Omar stepped forward, his scarred face unreadable but his voice cutting through the oppressive heat like a whip. "We cannot follow a path that leads only to ruin, Malik. Your obsession blinds you, and it will cost us all our lives." The words hit Malik like a sandstorm, blinding and suffocating. He clenched his fists, the knuckles whitening beneath the coarse leather gloves. "You forget who brought you through the fiercest dunes, who fought beside you when others fled. I am the only one who can lead us to the oasis and to power beyond your wildest dreams." A murmur rippled through the group, a tide of doubt swelling beneath the surface. Several mercenaries shifted their weight, glancing at each other with unspoken questions. The desert was ruthless. Survival depended on strength and unity. Yet here, in the heart of the wasteland, that unity was cracking. Leela Hassan crouched behind a cluster of jagged rocks at the edge of the camp, her keen eyes taking in every detail. The betrayal she sensed rippled through her like a sudden chill despite the searing heat. Her breath was shallow, heart pounding as she weighed the implications. Malik's grip, loosening, could be the key to tipping the scales, but it also meant chaos, and chaos in the desert was deadly. She shifted her gaze to the horizon where the sun burned low, the sky awash of molten gold and blood-red streaks. Time was slipping away, the oasis still distant, shimmering like a mirage born of desperation and hope. Meanwhile, Jonathan Crane approached cautiously, the dust swirling around his boots, marking his determined advance. The memories of past failures pressed on him, but so did the promise of redemption. Hearing the distant raised voices, the tension thick in the air, he knew this fracture could turn the tide. Jonathan's sharp eyes scanned the camp, noting the division, the subtle glances of defiance exchanged between Omar and his followers. His mind raced, formulating a plan that could exploit Moloch's weakened position without further bloodshed. He had learned the hard way that brute force was not always the answer. Sometimes survival demanded cunning and patience. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, shadows lengthened and merged, swallowing the camp in gloom. Malik retreated to the edge of the desert, standing alone beneath the vast expanse of stars. The pale light of the desert moon cast his scarred face in stark relief, revealing the cracks beneath his hardened exterior. He was a man torn between the ruthless ambition that had fueled his rise and the bitter taste of betrayal that now gnawed at his soul. The desert's cold silence pressed in around him, a judge indifferent to human struggle. For the first time, Malik confronted the cost of his obsession. Could he find redemption in this moment of weakness, or would his desperation drive him to darker depths? The mercenaries' mutiny had altered the landscape of the pursuit, and the endless chase beneath the desert moon was far from over. The fragile balance of power had shifted, and with it, the fate of the lost oasis and all who sought its elusive promise. The sun hung low, a molten orb, bleeding its last golden light across the endless sea of sand. Jonathan Crane wiped the sweat from his brow, his eyes fixed on the subtle irregularity in the dune before him. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like a mere disturbance caused by shifting sands, but Jonathan knew better. The ancient manuscript had alluded to a hidden passage, one concealed beneath the desert's deceptive surface. Now, standing at this very spot, he could feel the pulse of history beneath his feet. "It's here," Jonathan whispered, his voice barely audible over the soft whisper of the desert wind. Beside him, Lila Hassan crouched, scanning the terrain with practiced eyes. "I can sense it too," she said, her tone a mix of reverence and caution. Marcus Finch, adjusting his spectacles, peered over her shoulder, skepticism still etched faintly across his features. The team worked swiftly but carefully, their hands brushing away layers of sand to reveal the outline of a stone structure. Soon, a narrow fissure emerged, yawning open like a secret mouth waiting to reveal its story. Jonathan's heart pounded as he grasped the edge of the opening, peering into the cool darkness beyond. A stairway, Lila breathed, producing her torch and lighting it, the flame casting flickering shadows against the rough stone walls. Jonathan descended first, each step echoing softly in the silence, a sacred hush that enveloped them as they ventured deeper beneath the desert. The air grew cooler, carrying a faint scent of ancient earth and forgotten time. At the bottom, the passage opened into a cavernous chamber that stole the breath from Jonathan's lungs. Before them stretched walls covered with murals, their colors remarkably preserved beneath layers of dust and sand. Vivid blues and fiery reds danced alongside golds and deep blacks, illustrating scenes of celestial bodies swirling above figures engaged in enigmatic rituals. This is extraordinary," Marcus murmured, his usual cynicism replaced by sheer wonder. "These murals look at the detail. They depict the stars, the sun, the moon, even the oasis itself, surrounded by what appears to be a protective circle." Jonathan ran his fingers lightly over the cool stone, tracing the outlines of a figure that seemed to reach toward a radiant orb. Could this be the source of the immortality? He wondered aloud. A ritual, a blessing, or perhaps a warning. Lila moved to a nearby wall, her expression tightening as she studied an inscription carved in an ancient dialect. "This language, it's related to my people's ancestors," she said slowly. "My grandmother spoke of a sacred bond to this place, a legacy kept secret for generations." Her revelation sent a ripple of silence through the group. The oasis was no longer just a myth or a prize. It was woven into the very fabric of Leela's heritage, a lineage of guardianship and responsibility. Suddenly, a distant sound shattered the fragile calm. Footsteps, harsh and deliberate, echoed faintly from above. Jonathan's gaze snapped to the entrance, where dust swirled in the dying light. Malik al-Sayed's familiar silhouette appeared, flanked by mercenaries, their intent unmistakable. "They've found us," Jonathan muttered, urgency tightening his voice. "We have what we came for, but we're not safe yet." Lila tightened her grip on her weapon, eyes flashing with fierce determination. Marcus adjusted his glasses, steeling himself for the confrontation. Jonathan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. Beneath the desert sky, the ancient secrets of the oasis beckoned, but so too did the shadow of conflict. The chase was far from over, and the sands still held many mysteries, some beautiful, others deadly. As the first stars emerged, shimmering faintly above the dunes, Jonathan knew that what lay beneath the sands was not just history, was the key to a destiny that would test every ounce of courage and resolve within him. The desert whispered its secrets, but only those willing to face its trials could hope to hear the truth. And the truth, Jonathan realized, was still buried deep beneath the shifting sands, waiting to be uncovered.